try and empathize or think like the clients that you'd like to work with. So try and imagine why they might need an animation, what kind of search terms they'd use when looking online for one, what sort of worries they'd have, and how you could alleviate those worries.
Hey Hatchlings, welcome to the Motion Hatch podcast. I'm your host, Hayley Akins. Hey Hatchlings, thanks so much for joining me on the Motion Hatch podcast, where we talk about the business side of motion design and animation. This is episode 29. On this week's episode, we have Mair Perkins. Now, she is a motion designer and animator originally from Durham, which is where I'm from too. So I was kind of excited to talk to her. Also, she's living in Derby at the moment, so she doesn't live in London and she works mostly direct to client. So I know that a lot of you are really interested in working direct to client and remotely, either from your own home or in a studio. So I thought it'd be super great to get her on the show and ask her about how she does that. She gets a lot of her clients from LinkedIn, and I think that's a really underutilized platform in our industry. So I wanted to dive deep into all things LinkedIn with her and how she gets her clients from there. And I know you're all going to really enjoy this episode. Hey Mair, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Hi Hayley, thanks for having me.
I think it's going to be a really great one. I'm really excited to talk to you about your business and everything like that. So I just wanted you to tell us about your background and how you got into animation.
So I've been animating full time since late 2011, but before then I worked part-time as a graphic designer. And before then I was studying animation at the University of Derby in England. I did 3 years on a BA and then did a master's as well. So that was from 2006 to 2011. So I feel like I've been at it a while now, but yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It's a great job to have, just animating, making cartoons all day.
Yeah, so I think I saw on your LinkedIn that you were teaching at Derby University a little bit. Is that right?
I'm kind of like a 0-hour contract associate lecturer. So I only go in and teach like an odd session when the other tutors need me. It's mainly for teaching the software. So I'd run like After Effects lessons, or recently I did some DUIC lessons for second years on character animation, like second year animation students. So it's not very regular, but yeah, it's nice to do it every now and then because it's very different to being a freelance motion designer. You know, you're sat by myself at a desk. So teaching in a class and helping other people with animations, a nice change. But I don't do it very often. I'm technically an employee because that's how the university wanted to do it. Like they didn't want to have me as a freelance teacher. So yeah, that's my second job, even though I probably only do a handful of hours every year. It's a nice change of pace.
That's cool. So you live in Derby, but you're originally from Durham.
Yeah, that's right. You've probably noticed my accent doesn't sound like it's from the northeast of England. Like I lived in some other places before then, but my family moved to Durham when I was about 5 or 6. And then, yeah, I moved away from Durham for university when I was 19. But I still go back there quite often to visit family. Yeah, you're from the nearby, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm from Durham as well. Not that I'm saying that, I just brought you on the podcast so that we can talk about Durham. But everyone else in the world is going to be listening to this, going to be like, where's Durham? But yeah, it's in the northeast of the UK. And it's just really exciting to talk to someone else who does motion design who's like originally from there. I think you can still count from 6 to 19. I think that still counts.
Yeah.
So, it's exciting.
Yeah, it's a very different part of England to like the south, especially London. It's just a lot more remote and rural. And yeah, I can't remember design and animation being mentioned ever. Like when I was growing up there, I never saw a design studio or anything like that. It's mainly like farmers and shop work and things like that.
Yeah, I think like in Newcastle now, I know there's definitely some more stuff going on. Like there's a meetup called Annie Meets from James Taylor, who's from Arca Studios. So we should give that a mention. If anyone's in the northeast of England, then they can go to that because it's really cool. So I guess Derby, I don't necessarily feel like that's like a huge animation hub either. So, I mean, where are you getting most of your clients from? And do you find it a bit more difficult, you think, than if you were like in London, for example?
I'd say 80% of my work is with clients outside of Derby. So I've occasionally, I'll get a project that's local, but yeah, there's not a huge demand for explainer animations, the ones that I make. So yeah, most of my work is direct to clients, and I get most of my work through people that either find my website through Google or social media. So sometimes people might find me in social media, then go to my website and inquire, or sometimes it's like just a direct message on social media. So I'd say LinkedIn has probably been the most successful for like inquiries that lead to work. So that's where I get most of my work. When I first started my business, I did make an effort to go to business networking events in the area, and like I weren't focused on creative things. It was like any sort of local business, like SMEs. I used to go to those, and sometimes I found work at those, or people would remember me, then refer me for a job a few months later. Yeah, when I started like my business in 2011, I just knew that I wanted to do something with illustration and animation. So I didn't really know that you could work in a studio. You know, like a lot of motion designers seem to go to studios in London or whichever city they're in. Like that's how they get their work. They sort of go between studios. I didn't know about that style of working. I just sort of saw myself as a small business, and then just thought I'll just try and get work however, whether it's locally or remotely. So I was just sort of open to anything. And yeah, I just sort of kept up doing direct to client remote work. But I didn't realize it was like not the normal thing for motion designers, because I guess when I started, I didn't even know of the job title motion designer.
Yeah, I think it's just super interesting because I know that a lot of people who listen to this, like some of them are in like London and LA, New York, and places like that. But then there's also a lot of people who are in different cities around the world who they don't have those hubs of studios, like you're saying, and they can't just go into them. So I think it's like, it's really good that in a way that almost like you didn't have that, because I think that that's allowed you to build your business in a different way and probably build a business that suits you more. Would you say that that's true?
Yeah, definitely. Like when I was starting out, I just got a lot of generic startup business advice and help from the university. And I think like back in 2011, the UK government had more business support things around, you know, like classes and workshops and things like that. So I just sort of attended those, and they just sort of gave general advice on marketing, sales, how to manage clients and things like that, and sort of just took all that on board. And then that's how I've always tried to like run my business, like doing direct to client work. So I did find it quite hard to begin with, you know, like it's quite a steep learning curve with like managing clients and multiple projects, and then maybe hiring other people to help you occasionally. But once I kind of got the hang of it, I found that I wouldn't really want to switch to like freelancing in-house in studios, because I'm so used to, you know, working from home or working in my co-working space, or like kind of setting my own hours and doing my own thing. And because I've tried freelancing in a studio, like there's been one in Nottingham that I went to for a while, and I found that I didn't really like the commute, and it was kind of disruptive having to spend like a whole day in another studio, because then I couldn't like respond to my other clients, you know, because, you know, it's just not done to sort of check your emails and go on your phone and stuff when you're working with another client. So I just found it too stressful to sort of dedicate a whole day in another studio somewhere. So I've just decided that remote is best for me. Sometimes I work for agencies or studios, but it usually be remotely. So they might have a main client and then they hire me to help with the project. But most of the time it's direct to client work.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because my experience recently is I was doing like a lot of remote work, but then I had one big client that I went in a lot for because they were really great. And I was their lead animator and hiring people in for them and things like that. And then I just sort of approached them recently and was asking if I could do more full-time, remote stuff, because like we were doing like a little bit of remote here and there, but now I'm working from my studio like every day remotely. And it's just so much easier to fit other like small things around because, otherwise you're sort of in the studio, you might be waiting for feedback, but like you say, you don't feel like you can just be like answering another client's email or something like that. Or for me, like doing something for Motion Hatch, I felt bad to do that. Then working remotely because you're like, well, I'm waiting for feedback, or, we've got like a bit of a down day and things like that, then it's easy because then you can just pick up these other little bits and bobs that you need to do in your business.
Yeah, definitely. And even things like if you just want to go out for a walk or a run for a bit, or have like a long lunch break, or maybe you want to start work early in the morning and finish a bit later, or it's just nice to have that freedom to sort of do other things as well. And of course, like managing a business and other clients. So yeah, I'm just not keen on the 9 to 5 being stuck somewhere. Even though I guess the downside of what I do is that you don't get to meet other motion designers as much. And like I'm sure there's loads you can learn from being in a studio with a team. And I'm sure some people prefer being in a studio with a team and having the kind of atmosphere and buzz there. But yeah, I've always preferred kind of being able to manage my own time and be able to work alone somewhere quietly.
Yeah, that makes sense. So do you purposely try and go like out and meet other motion designers, or do you get more involved with online groups and things like that because you're working on your own?
I guess when I first started my business, I would go to a lot of design and tech meetups because there wasn't like so much of a animation or motion design scene around in the Midlands. But recently there's a event in Nottingham called Annie Morsels, which I think they've only hosted one event so far, but it was really good. They had someone from Ardman come and talk, and they're having another event soon. So I attend those. And I think ever since I did School of Motion, like did one of their courses in 2015, I became much more involved with like the online community, and that kind of replaced going out to sort of design and tech and business meetups in person. So I probably spend more time socializing with animators online now, even though like when I get quite busy with work, I can sometimes neglect my social media as much, and I kind of feel guilty for that, for not being involved enough in a community. But sometimes I just need to switch everything off and just focus on the work. But yeah, I try to go to meetups and things because it is nice to meet other animators. But yeah, probably not as much as I'd like to if I had more time, I think. But yeah, doing a lot of direct to client work means that I just need to focus on the actual work a lot of the time.
I mean, everyone is always saying when I ask them, like, what do you want? And they're like, I want to work remotely and I want to work direct to clients. So I just wanted to like ask you how you built that up. And is it mostly from social media and LinkedIn and things like that?
I think the biggest help I had was having like a website designed professionally, because I think like when I decided to take my business full time, I did that in 2011. I paid a web designer to build a site for me, and she knew a lot about SEO, and she made like a WordPress one, so it's easy for me to update as well. But she also gave me like lots of SEO advice and things, like using the right words and make sure that you label your images properly and that kind of stuff. So I did that, and I noticed I started to get more inquiries through our website. And I've always tried to be active on social media, but just sort of sharing what I'm up to, like, because I've never felt too comfortable being really pushy with sales, or like putting up a post saying, hey, buy an animation from me. It's more just kind of being like, hey, I'm animating this right now, and I've made this recently. So it's more kind of letting people be aware that I'm around, and then if they do need an animation, hopefully I'll pop into their head. So yeah, most of my direct to client work was through my website and social media, and then some of it as well was from networking in person. But I'd say the majority of it was a website and social media. I've been trying to niche down on the kind of projects I get. Like Like when I first started my business, I was happy to do sort of any kind of explainer animations. I was getting quite a lot of corporate ones that I don't know if you remember, like back in 2012, it was like really fashionable to have the cutout silhouettes of people that you got from iStock. and
Oh yeah.
and like lots of app icons with bevels and gradients. So
Yeah.
I was doing like a lot of videos like that, and I just wasn't happy with how my portfolio was looking. So I started to showcase more character animation work and things to do with environmental things or science outreach or like things for charities. And then I found that once I posted my portfolio, maybe a few months later, I'd probably have an inquiry from a similar organization. Like, for example, like the environmental animations I've made, I've been doing those for a few years, have a few on my website. So I quite often have inquiries from researchers or people involved with environmental associations saying, hey, we saw this animation on your site, we want something similar. So I've been sort of gradually trying to build my portfolio to target the kind of clients that I want. So I'm just hoping that they'll discover me just by searching, and then hopefully my animation will pop up and they say, oh yeah, we want something like that. So it's not a really solid strategy, but it's just something that I always kind of keep on the back burner, like for getting direct to client work.
I think you said a lot of things there that probably a lot of people haven't thought about. And also, like you said, it's not like a solid strategy, but the fact that you're putting a bit of thought into this and you're sort of going into a direction that you want to go in and you're like intentionally making more of that work and stuff, I think that is a strategy and I think it's a good one. And I also think what is really interesting, which I didn't know, is that you like hired someone to help you with your website because they know about more SEO and things like that. And I think I've heard that with WordPress, it is like easier to rank and things. I mean, I'm not like an SEO expert. Maybe we need to get one on here. That's probably a good idea. But yes, I think that's really smart. And also, I noticed on your website, you talk a lot about the animation process and like explain the videos and what you do and things like that, rather than it just being really just the work on there. So I wonder if like that's where a lot of the stuff is coming from and how it's coming up in, search engines and things like that.
I think it's like common SEO advice that you try and think about like how your customer would be thinking. Like if they were doing a search in Google, what would they type in? So it might be something like, oh, I want an After Effects animator in this area. So you would make sure that you say, I'm an animator based in Durham that works with After Effects or something like that. But Google, I know that they changed their algorithms a lot, because a few years ago it just used to be all about keywords. So people used to like keyword stuff their websites. So for example, if you had a website with a white background, they might just stuff a load of relevant keywords in white text at the bottom of the website to try and trick the Google search algorithm. But now like Google will penalize you for word stuffing and they prefer organic language. So I just try and talk about what I do on my website and just try to sound like a real person that's an animator. So hopefully I'll rank okay for it. I'm not an SEO expert, but these are just like bits that I've picked up with the advice of a web designer and just some reading like online digital marketing articles and things like that. I know there's like people out there who are way more knowledgeable about this than me. So yeah, maybe having someone on the podcast would be good. But yeah, that's how I try and get a lot of my direct to client work, by just trying to think what would they be searching for and just trying to make sure that Google would find me and I'd have something relevant to what they're searching for.
It seems so simple, but like it makes so much sense. And I don't think a lot of people are thinking about this kind of stuff. And also I noticed on your LinkedIn profile, because every time I go on LinkedIn, you're like there at the top. So I feel like you're doing a great job at like being visible on LinkedIn. But as well, when I went on your profile, you say explainer animations instead of like animator or motion designer. You're actually like saying what you're selling almost like right at the top. And I think that kind of stuff really helps too.
I guess I put that on because I think quite early on when I started my business, I realized that most clients who don't work in the creative industries aren't familiar with the terminology that we use. So they probably don't know that I make these things in After Effects just because it's like not something in their world of work. But I think a lot of people are familiar with explainer videos, or sometimes they call them things like infographic videos or animated videos. So yeah, I think there's a lot of organizations out there that know like there are these animated videos which go on websites and sort of tell people what they do, but there's lots of different terminology for it. So I've just sort of stuck with explainer videos. So I did that, so then hopefully I would appear in searches if people were looking for explainer videos. And also, I guess if somebody did just wonder what I do, it's better to let them know what sort of service I provide to other businesses and organizations rather than just, oh, I use After Effects, because that would be better if I was targeting studios because they would be specifically looking for After Effects artists. But a client, like say an environmental organization, probably just thinks, I want to explain a video. They're not thinking I need an After Effects artist.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And it's like something that I think we don't think about. Like everyone wants to get more direct client work and things like that from what you were talking about, like about for flexibility or people who maybe don't work in big cities where there's big studios where they can work. But we're not really thinking about like, well, how do the clients that we want to hire us, what language are they using and where are they looking for people like us that provide these services? And it's probably not really on Instagram and stuff like that, where I would say like, I think would be more like the studios and the agencies and stuff like that. I think it's more on LinkedIn and like just organically searching, because LinkedIn's more of a like business to business platform. And I just think it's so unutilized in our industry. And that's why I really wanted to talk about it with someone who is using it and actually getting direct clients from it, because I think it's super interesting.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, funnily enough, on LinkedIn, I do still get a lot of inquiries from agencies and studios. I say probably more from them, but I think it might be also the kind of posts that I'm putting up, because I put up a lot of like behind the scenes, how here's a video of me working in After Effects with a rig that I built, or just a behind the scenes kind of clip. So I think, again, maybe that sort of post would appeal more to someone who knows what it is. So maybe that's why it's getting more studios to inquire. But I find if I post up like a finished video, like, oh, here's an animation I made recently for this organization, then I'm more likely to get an inquiry from somebody who works in a similar organization or just wants a fully fleshed out video. So it's kind of interesting to see the sort of interactions you get after the type of posts that you put up. I'm still experimenting with it quite a lot, and I don't have a solid strategy. Just a lot of the time when I post something, I just think, oh, it's okay to share this video now, I'll put that up. Or I'm just working on this and I'm quite happy with it, so I'll post that online. So it's one of those things I keep meaning to do, is to develop like a proper social media strategy, but it's just time and time and willingness.
Yeah, but I think even the fact that you're quite consistent with posting, it seems like, from my perspective anyway, especially on LinkedIn. And like I saw one of your posts from the other day, I think it was about 6 days ago, and it had like 327 likes, 14 comments, and like 6,000 views. And I was like, wow, that's really good. Just because it's obviously getting like attention from people. Do you see like when you post something like, I think that was like a behind the scenes thing. So are you getting like people messaging you in the messenger system after a post like that?
Yeah, I'll get a lot of connection requests and messages. I'd say about 80% of them are other animators asking for advice, like either students or other people working in the industry, which is absolutely fine. Happy to answer questions. I even made like an FAQ for my website, because I get asked a lot of questions. But things like, what software do you use? What are your PC specs? What plugins do you use? So, and then a few other questions like, do you have any advice for being an animator and things like that? So I'd usually just say, oh, hi, thanks for your question. Here's a link to my FAQ, because sometimes it is a little bit overwhelming, like when a post gets that much attention, which I'm completely grateful for. But, when you're just trying to get on with work and you just have like 20 messages asking you about animating. So I want to be helpful, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, sorry, I'm busy. But yeah, usually then the other 20% would be like someone who says, oh, I saw your work. I connect with you because we might have a project coming up, or could we have a chat about a potential project or something? But yeah, I would say about 80% are probably other animators or students are interested in it. I think I've even recommended Motion Hatch to a couple of people because they're asking for business advice.
Yeah, well, thanks. I appreciate that. I think it's great either way, because it's obviously like if you're putting something up like that and you're getting people's attention, and it is resulting in work, like that's what we want, isn't it? And it proves that your posts on LinkedIn are like getting out there because you're just getting so many messages, and like even if it is from like other animators and things like that, and it's still great. I think people could use it for getting attention from other animators, for example, if they were looking for more work, like recommendations, or like if animators in the same city as them and if they're working in house and things like that. I think that could work quite well too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've made like a few friends or like online acquaintances that way as well. So yeah, even if it's just connecting with other animators, it's still really nice.
I had another question about, because you do like a lot of behind the scenes and things like that. Do you ask your clients permission, or do you have something in like a contract that says you can share this stuff on LinkedIn?
Usually I send a contract to begin with, and it'll say, I'll only share it with permission. And most of the time clients are fine. I usually just ask them at the beginning. I think because it's like so behind the scenes and you can't tell what organization it's for all the time. I think they're mainly just bothered about having the final video posted too early, which I just wait till they publish it, then I share it. But yeah, they don't seem to mind. I think if anything, it might be a subconscious way to show them of like, look, people like it already. It's not done yet. Or like it's getting a good response already and it isn't finished yet. If I work with like an agency or a studio, where like there's a client, then the studio, then me, then they're definitely not keen on me sharing things. And they say up front, like, don't share it. And I'm like, okay. And then just wait to see if when it's published, if I'm allowed to share it. So that's another reason I'm not as keen. Well, I'm more keen on getting direct to client work because they are more relaxed about sharing behind the scenes. And if I was working with clients all the time who wouldn't let me share behind the scenes things, I'd probably run out of content to post pretty quickly. I'm quite lucky that way. I have had a few animators ask me like how I'm able to do that. And I guess I'm just fortunate with the clients I have. They don't seem to mind. Like I'm rarely working on things that are top secret or things like that.
Yeah, I just thought I'd point that out because it's, it is important to make sure that we like have clients' permission and stuff if we're sharing things before they go out. Like even if you're just send them an email saying, oh, hey, I was going to share this like little behind the scenes thing just on my social or whatever, because otherwise people could like listen to this and then do that and then maybe get into trouble or something with their clients, and we don't want that. So.
No, yeah, I always ask for permission. And yeah, if you have a contract to begin with, then you can talk about confidentiality and sharing in the contract. So the contract should cover everything, really.
Obviously, I think it's important to have a contract, and we have the freelance contract bundle that people can get from the Motion Hatch website. And we like cover all of this kind of stuff in there, like about, being able to share the work on your website and being able to show the client's name and things like that. I can't remember if we did say about work in progress stuff, but I feel like if you're discussing the sharing kind of stuff, when you send them the contract, like you say, you can just sort of say that on the email, like, oh, I might share some work in progress stuff on my social media. Is that okay with you? Obviously, if they're allowing you to share the final thing when it's published, that sort of stuff is usually okay too. When was the last time a client paid you late, or you wanted to charge for project files but didn't know how? Most of the issues we face in our businesses as motion designers can be solved with good communication. The best way to communicate your terms upfront to the client and ensure your project runs smoothly is to have a solid contract in place. In talking to motion designers, I know that most are either not using a contract at all or have cobbled together one from various online sources. I get it. Lawyers can be expensive and you just want to get on with what you do best, which is making great work. That's exactly why I created the Freelance Contract Bundle. Designed in collaboration with lawyers from both the UK and the US, the Freelance Contract Bundle is a set of downloadable contract templates made specially for motion designers and animators. It includes a commission contract and a freelance terms of service contract, helping you create smoother relationships both direct to client and also while working with agencies and studios. To find out how the Freelance Contract Bundle can help protect your business, your work, and ensure your projects run smoothly, go to motionhatch.com/contract. Now let's get back to the episode. So I noticed that you have also 43 recommendations on LinkedIn, which I thought was pretty impressive.
Oh,
So how do you go about getting those? Do you just use the LinkedIn platform to message them, or are you kind of sending them an email and saying, hey, can I reach out to you on LinkedIn for this recommendation beforehand?
usually email. I think some of the recommendations I had were like they date back to maybe 2008, 2009. So some of them are like old employee references, like fellow co-workers. But yeah, usually with clients when I finish a job, usually it's all quite friendly and happy and they're pleased with the finished result. Everything's been done on time. So I just say, oh, do you mind when you have a moment writing a short recommendation for me, please? It'll be really helpful. Or I'll put it on our website. And usually just say if you're on LinkedIn, I'll just send you a connection request and recommendation request there. Not everyone does get around to it, but it's quite surprising how many clients are kind enough to do that because they don't have to. They've already paid for the animation. They don't then have to write a recommendation. But yeah, if you just like when you're working with a client, just be a nice person, just like be friendly with them, make the whole process pleasant, then I think they're just happy to do something nice for you as a person and just leave a recommendation. But yeah, sometimes people don't get around to it if they're busy, but it's fine. It's just try and make it like a end of project thing to do and just ask for a recommendation.
Yeah, I just think it's really clever because when people look at your profile, they're like, oh, she's worked with all these people. That's really cool. Like, she must be reliable and good and everything like that. And then I noticed that you put them on your website as well. So that's why I thought, oh, you must be emailing and saying like, can I reach out to you on LinkedIn and put this on my website, which is something that I've done before. So I was just wondering about that.
Yeah, I think it was like some business advice I got like when I was starting up, like how important testimonials are. I suppose you see them on like loads of business websites. You go on there and have case studies, testimonials, because proof from other customers seems to be really important in the sales process. So it's just something I've stuck at.
Yeah, I think it's really good. And I think it's probably good for people who are working in agencies and stuff too. But definitely if people want to get more direct to client work, I think that's what businesses are looking for, that kind of thing, like testimonials. And if you look at your website and then you looked at someone else's website and say the work was similar, but then you have like all these testimonials, then you're probably just going to hire you instead of the other person just based on that.
Yeah, I found early on in like when I was running my business that most clients, I kind of thought they'd be really concerned about like the aesthetics of the piece. I'm not saying that like I suddenly decided, oh, I can just do bad work now. But I found clients like care, like when you're doing direct to client work, they care about having someone that's reliable and communicates often, replies to things, and like manages the project. So like usually like when I start a project, I'll set out a project agreement with a schedule, and I'll even give clients dates of when I'm sending something for review, when I need feedback by, and I'll be chasing them for things all the time, but in a friendly way, like, oh, hey, if you got the feedback ready yet? Because if we want to stay on track to the deadline, I need it by this date. So just friendly reminders like that. So I try to take as much like responsibility for the project, because a lot of the people that hire me are like often employees in a marketing department, so they already have tons of things to do, so they don't really want to be like micromanaging something else. So I just try to make it as easy for them. So that's kind of the impression I want to give like with my website and LinkedIn, is like, I'm trustworthy and I'll make your life easy if you hire me to animate for you.
Yeah, that makes me wonder. So are on LinkedIn, are you actively reaching out to people, or are you mainly putting content out there and kind of doing like more inbound marketing stuff rather than actually like doing cold emails or cold messaging on LinkedIn?
I've always avoided doing the cold email and messaging. I think it's been on my to-do list to try it for quite a few years, but I've always been fortunate enough that my preferred methods seem to work. Like I read the freelance manifesto, University School of Motion, and I thought, oh, there's
Yeah.
great tips in there. I really should try them. And I just haven't got around to doing them. I think it's one of those things where I know I should go out and approach people directly, because it would probably be able to find the clients I want to work with more efficiently that way. If I just found an organization or a charity or something like that, it's like, oh, you're the kind of organization I'd love to work with, and contact them. But because I'm quite shy by nature, it's just I've just always avoided it because I've been able to find work other ways. So I know it's something I should do, but I just haven't done the cold contacting side of things. I think I might have when I was first starting out, but I think I tried to do it more in a referral way, or like get in touch with old clients, or I'd go to a networking event, and if somebody said they were interested in my animation work, I'd be sure to follow up with them. So I think I was maybe somewhere in between earlier on in my career when I was starting out, because I had to be a bit more proactive. But I found that I much prefer when someone approaches me, because I know that they already are interested in an animation. So I don't feel like I have to do a hard sell or try and convince them of anything. I'm not really keen on the sales side of things. So
I think you're doing it in like a smart way, because you're putting behind the scenes stuff out there and your work out there on LinkedIn, and sort of connecting with the people and things like that. So I think that, you're getting more warm leads, like you say, instead of going out there and cold calling. So I think it's really smart. And like if you're getting enough direct client work, then you don't really need to go out and do the cold email and
that's really good to hear, because I kind of like, I've got a spreadsheet which I keep meaning to fill in with like clients and organizations I want to contact. I think I've gone as far as like putting the names and websites and emails in, and then never actually sending the email. But it's like, oh, when things get quiet, I'll do that. And then I just never do, because I'm just like, I just don't like cold calling. But I'm sure lots of people feel the same about that. Like, it's an uncomfortable thing to do, but I know it is something worth doing, especially if like you're just starting out and setting up your own business.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's good that you're thinking about like the kind of clients that you want, and sort of in a more niche kind of aspect, rather than, oh, I'm just going to make a massive spreadsheet of like all the clients in the world that could possibly hire me, because that, I feel like that never works. You're actually thinking like, oh, where does my work fit, and what clients fit with me and my values and things like that, which is, I always feel like is really important. That's something that I try and do too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I liked your podcast when you talked about niching down and sort of targeting, trying to get the work that you want to get. And I can't remember the guy's name, but the one who donated part of his profits to something to do with climate change, like that was really cool.
Yeah, that was episode 21, How to Shape the Life You Want Through Your Freelance Business, with Tom Davis. Yeah, he donates, I think he said like 2% or something to a charity that plants trees. So that was really awesome.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah, I think it's really nice when people think about their social responsibilities and how they impact the world, and try and bring that into their animation as well. I think it's cool.
Yeah, I definitely see more motion designers out there interested in that, and studios doing that as well. It's really nice. It makes me happy.
Yeah, I think it's like a smart business thing too, if I'm honest, because I think if you're going out there and talking to clients who kind of believe in the same things as you do, then they're probably more likely to hire you. The other day, I went to a networking event with some B Corps, and B Corps, I think I've talked about it on the podcast quite a lot before, but they're like businesses, they get a certification, and they're kind of using their businesses for like good, basically, in a way that it's not like charities, but it's businesses that balance purpose and profit. and they are legally required to consider the impact of their decisions on their workers and their suppliers and their community and the environment and stuff like that. So that was really awesome. And it was great to meet like-minded people who are thinking about sustainability and, you know, how much plastic there is in the world and things like that. And it was good to meet business owners thinking about that. And, you know, I was trying to reach more out to those kind of people to work with as well. So that was really cool.
Yeah, I found when I first started going to business events and sort of being involved in the business world of things, that I felt a bit of an outsider in like run-of-the-mill kind of business events, you know, like B&I. The main reason I run my business is so I can do something I enjoy as a living. Like, of course, making money is important to keep living and keep buying new equipment and software for the business and stuff. But it's not like the main reason I'm an animator. Like, it's not to make money. So I always felt like I'm running my business for other reasons. And then it sort of made me think about the way a lot of businesses are run just worldwide, where their only goal is profit. Of course, profit is important to keep things running, but they should also be running to give people employment and think about sustainability and the environment and their social impact. I'm glad there's more talk about these kind of things now. Like, not all businesses are just there to make as much profit as possible at the expense of people and the environment.
I think it's becoming more of a popular thing, and I find it really encouraging, and it's definitely something that I want to dig into a little bit more. And it just makes sense, doesn't it? Especially in like the way everything is in the world today. So yeah, if there's one piece of advice that you'd like the audience to take away from our conversation today, what would that be?
I guess it would be try and empathize or think like the clients that you'd like to work with. So try and imagine why they might need an animation, what kind of search terms they'd use when looking online for one, what sort of worries they'd have, and how you could alleviate those worries. So just trying to imagine like your ideal client as a person and how you could appeal to them and how you could work together. And I think that not only in like the sales side or the marketing side, but then also when you're working together, like just trying to keep in mind like they might not always understand the software or the process. So just show some compassion or empathy. I guess just some understanding, try and imagine what it's like to be in their shoes.
Yeah, I think that makes complete sense if you're, you know, working more direct to client and things like that. So I think that's great advice. So yeah, if people want to find you and your work, where should they go?
If you just do an online search for my name, which is Mair Perkins, and it's spelled Mair, so it's a bit of an odd spelling, then my website should appear, and my social media, like I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, of course.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. I've listened for a long time, so it's quite exciting to be on here. Thank you.
Thanks so much to Mair for coming on the show. That was really awesome. She talked about using LinkedIn to get more client work, and I think it's just really, really great. And I really, really appreciate her coming on the show. If you enjoyed this one, then please do go to wherever you get your podcast from and subscribe and leave us a rating and review. If you could share this podcast, that would be awesome, because that just really helps me continue and, you know, gets it into more people's ears so I can help you all with the business side of motion design and bring more business experts and motion designers on the show to help you with your businesses. So I appreciate you listening. Thanks so much again. See ya.